Well, it's an absolutely beautiful day. The sun is out, blue skies, only a few clouds. Yes, the sea is a little choppy, and there is a reason for that. One of my favorite times to ride is, well, I'm not going to say in a typhoon, but just before a typhoon happens. And we actually have one that's going to be hitting Taiwan or around Taiwan like in the next 48 to 72 hours. And every time that happens, I always take the opportunity to head out and enjoy the riding because the weather is always like this. A little bit windy, but that's actually not so bad. But it's just absolutely gorgeous, as you can see. If the microphone is picking up wind noise, I apologize for that, but there's really nothing that I can do. So let me just set up here for a moment because there's something that I actually would like to talk about for a few minutes. So while I'm doing that, let's just look a little bit at the B-roll that I shot moments ago. There is something that I'd like to talk about for a few minutes. I do apologize for the wind. I decided to try to at least sit in a way where the wind is kind of behind me. Not exactly the greatest view, I suppose. But I always find it amusing when you look at things. Well, put it this way. It's always kind of, fish in a bowl, right? It's kind of nice to look at fish in a bowl. And that's how sometimes I like to look at people. Because with fish, you really never know what they're thinking. And of course, there's probably more important things that fish couldn't think about. But, well, all they think about is swimming. Swimming, eating, pooing every now and again. But really, these tiny little things. And I sometimes think, of course, that humans should be a little bit more evolved than fish. Now, there's something that was making the rounds on social media and also in the news a while ago about a beer in the United States called Bud Light. Well, there were a few things. I was very surprised to find out that Bud Light was the number one selling beer in the United States. But having tried it, I'm not really surprised. Every time that I've tried the large corporate beer produced in the United States, I always found it a little bit, not exactly great. I mean, it's bland, and it has the smell of, the smell if you go to a club or a bar at 5 o'clock in the morning or 7 in the morning, that sort of smell. That's what it's like to me personally. Anyway, everybody was getting into a tizzy. Now, I'm not going to say everybody, but a certain percentage of Bud Light drinkers were getting into a tizzy over a sponsorship deal that Anheuser-Busch, the company that owned the brand Bud Light, decided to do with someone who was transgender. Now, the picture that you're seeing right now is the one that people were complaining about, as well as others as well. And I'm just thinking to myself, honestly, really? You're concerned about this? I can think of at least 24 things that I am more concerned about with my everyday life and just everyday living than having somebody who's transgender who just happens to be on a can of really poor quality beer. Now, the story doesn't end there, because when that came out, there were people like this.
Grandpa's feeling a little frisky today. Let me say something to all you and be as clear and concise as possible. Fuck Bud Light and fuck Anheuser-Busch. Have a terrific day.
Yeah, Kid Rock. I'm gonna go and shoot my Budweiser because there's a lady with a dick on the packaging. What a bunch of morons, you know? Now, this whole thing about like brand loyalty doesn't really. Well, I've never really been brand loyal, and especially well when it comes to practically everything, even with motorcycles. And you will find the motorcycle fanboys quite annoying. They're a little bit like a religious cult to some degree. Now, every motorcycle brand has fanboys. And from my experience, I think the worst motorcycle fanboys that I have come across are Royal Enfield. Oh, there's a couple of nice bikes that went by. You can't see it. Too bad. It's Royal Enfield, where they will claim that it is the greatest and the best motorcycle ever made. It just isn't. I don't hate them, but it just isn't. It's just not the reality. And then you have the bit of a gust of wind. Then you have the Harley Davidson fanboys. Whew. Now, they're getting into a bit of a tizzy because Anheuser-Busch, that own Bud Light, that own Budweiser, are now doing a marketing campaign with the Harley Davidson logo on the can. But it's not for the reason you think that they're getting upset. All the videos that I've come across here on YouTube and on Instagram and on Facebook and even on TikTok, they're getting upset because it happens to be Anheuser-Busch, which did a transgender thing concerning Bud Light. One of the channels that I came across, I couldn't believe what he was saying. He was saying, I'm going to sell all my Harley stock because this wokeness is just driving me crazy. This is going to damage the brand. Yada, 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 yada. Actually, I should do the accent. You know what I think? I think this thing's going to damage the brand because I've been a Harley rider all my life. And when I see all this woke stuff and you're doing all the stuff with Anheuser-Busch, I think we should boycott Harley Davidson, blah, 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 blah. Yes, I mean, I'm, of course, paraphrasing. And I'm just thinking to myself, well, if there's a motorcycle that I happen to like, for example, let me take something like, let me just take off the top of my head a Suzuki, a GSX. I like it. And I love the bike, and it's a lot of fun to ride. But I don't concern myself what these companies do when it comes to marketing. I just couldn't care less. How about instead of complaining about what kind of marketing they're doing, because they're doing it, the company's doing some marketing that had a transgender affiliation and blah, 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 and all this nonsense, how about just going out and enjoy riding instead of wasting all the time and energy bitching and complaining about something which personally I see as a non-issue. Now, I was chatting with a couple of friends of mine back home, and a couple of friends in Australia and the UK as well, and they were all saying the same thing. Why are they so concerned about what kind of marketing Harley Davidson does? And like this brand loyalty, I've been with you my whole life, and now you're putting a fuck off. Honestly, fuck off. It's just completely ludicrous. It is honestly like a religious cult. Let Harley Davidson do what they like. If you like the bike, fine, go ahead and ride it. What does it matter to you if they put somebody who's transgender on a product that now Harley Davidson is affiliated with? It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to you. It doesn't matter to anybody around you. It doesn't matter to anybody. But they take it as like something personal, and you just like, you know what? Just get rid of the motorcycle and just bitch and complain about something which it doesn't matter. It is just extraordinary. I mean, and every time you do hear these kind of stories, like with the Bud Light one, and now Harley Davidson putting their logo on a can of Budweiser, because it's Anheuser-Busch, they're getting all upset. I'm thinking to myself, don't tell me there's other things in your life that are more important, that you should be more concerned about. Now, having said that, I only have one issue with Harley Davidson putting their logo on a can of beer. That would go with the same for any alcoholic product. Now, motorcycles, as we all know, are not exactly the safest vehicle in the world to drive or to ride. And you're associating with alcohol that impairs your movement, your judgment, and the way you see things. That's really smart. Oh, wait a second, I have a great idea. Lamborghini can start using one of the marijuana companies to do a promotion with. I mean, it is just the stupidest thing ever. I was doing a little bit of research, and the only other company that I came across that associated themselves in marketing with an alcoholic beverage was Indian, another American company. I mean, I can't imagine Triumph, Honda, Suzuki, Kawasaki, BMW, Ducati, and others wanting to associate themselves in a marketing campaign for alcohol with a motorcycle, which you're riding out. It just, that boggles my mind. The whole thing about a transgender, I don't give a crap. Also because Bud Light stinks. Even if it was on a beer that I liked, I still wouldn't care. It just doesn't matter. I mean, the only thing I can think of is maybe, perhaps... Oh, that's another nice bike. You can't see it because the road is this way. There's another thing I'm kind of thinking. I'm wondering maybe these people have some kind of pent-up tendencies that they don't want to admit to, which is the reason why they're getting upset because they're trying to cover something up. I don't know. It's just completely ridiculous. Anyway, that was my little rant and rave about these silly things. And the funny thing is, of course, I know that some people will say now I'm being anti-American. I'm not. I actually like Americans. Every time I've gone to the United States, I've always had a lot of fun. I have a few American friends. But there's two types of Americans. There are those who are normal, who care about normal things. And then you have the ones who are not normal, that care about small piddly things that just don't matter. Go ahead, boycott Harley Davidson. Don't buy a Harley Davidson again. Oh, but just stop, give up motorcycle riding, period, because it doesn't matter. I mean, I just couldn't care less. And I think most people couldn't care less. I mean, I have a can of Red Bull here that I'm drinking during this little break. No sponsorship, by the way. I mean, they could put... Let me think. Because there's something like 100 different genders now. They can put a transgender... Okay, they could put a trans man who happens to be a lesbian, who happens to be a penguin, who happens to be a tiger, who thinks that he's from the planet Zorton on the can of Red Bull, and I wouldn't care. I would still drink it because I don't care. I'm concerned about more important things like, oh, my planned vacation coming up. Oh, wait a second. I just remembered I have a few payments to make on a new car that I just bought. So if you put a penis and vagina together on a can of Red Bull, where somebody's claiming to be a lesbian nun priest who happens to like having sex with trees, I don't care. I just don't care. I'm just very curious to see what you think. Anyway, like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you soon. And now some more B-roll of this absolutely beautiful day. Typhoons are great. I know that may sound controversial to some people, but they are. Just what they bring before. A little bit of wind and rain later, but it doesn't really matter. And I'll say it again. Like, comment, and subscribe.